today guys I want to talk about purchase orders. Now this is for builders. Look, it does also work in other businesses. However, I want to talk about the accountability that you put on a price that you give to a job or a quote. And I want to talk about, before you do that quote, how to break things down into stages so when you win the quote you can actually go into production. And when you're in production, you can give the people that are involved in the job a purchase order to say, this is what I'm paying you for and this is what's included. The benefit of doing that, and I'll also talk about the disadvantages of people that haven't done that, but the benefit is that you know who is getting paid for what, including materials, labour, contingency, hire, all of those type of things. And the disadvantage of doing it is if you don't do it and you go, oh, you know what, for big items like bricks and roofing and flooring, I'm going to send some sort of a purchase order to them so that I've got my big items solved. And all of the little items, you kind of bundle them all up into a section. You might go for, say, your fit out or fix out. You might say, I'm going to stick $1,000 in there for incidentals and hardware and things like that. The problem is when you actually start to get those invoices come in, you chew that budget quicker than what you think, because most of the time the incidentals and little things that you bundle together are the things that actually eat into your profit. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just flick into a model for a second, guys, and I'm doing this straight off the cuff. I'm just thinking about what I did as a business. I'm going to explain to you how I went about doing this. So let's have a quick look. I'm just using Plus Design Build here. I'm just going to draw one wall. I don't even know what wall's saved from last time here. It's a brick veneer, 9 foot, 2700 wall, and I'm going to have 450 centered studs and so on. These are all the selections. Every single thing here is actually going to be purchased. So for instance, materials, I'm going to order bricks. So let's just say we're going to use this particular brick. This brick is going to come with sand and cement. It's going to come with brick hardware. It's going to come with a whole heap of things that are the incidentals that a lot of us package up. So I've got internal lining, and I might just make it, I don't know, plasterboard. And wall insulation, yep, that's something you can bundle. Even wall cavity ties to hold the bricks to the framework. What have we got here? We got window flashings, fire seal, whatever it might be. You can add little things to these, but I'm not showing you how to use the software. I'm just showing you how you can actually think about and figure out where to give purchase orders to items. I'm just going to draw one wall. We'll make it really easy. I'll make it 2500 high. And I'll just quickly just draw it, say 4 meters long. Right, so now I have a brick veneer wall with studs, insulation and cladding. If I went to seal, you can see that it actually put in my cornice and skirting. If I put in a door, maybe let's say, you know, I'll put in a window 1 meter by 1 meter. Add window. All of these things need to be accounted for. So let's just choose a really easy window, say a single hung window at 1 meter. Right. That's put in the extra studs, the lintel to hold up the brickwork. And when we talk about purchase orders and actually accounting for everything inside of here, I'll just do a takeoff. The software itself actually does the majority of things that are laborious, for instance, like putting in lintels and sills and all of that type of thing. So we can even track our time, but we won't talk about it at the moment. We've got framing. Inside of our framing, if we went to edit, see more, we have a cut list of items that we would use here for our ribbon plates, cripple studs, sill trimmers and everything like that. All of that would be bundled to the carpenter and we could just simply associate price with the carpenter there. Or we could just go, you know what, let's just turn our advanced framing off and go back. I'll just update that. Right, so framing. And if I went in here and said edit, see more, you'll notice that now I've just got the total length of lumber that we're going to purchase. And I've already put a subcontractor in here. It's Watts Carpentry in this particular instance. And Watts Carpentry will be supplying these So these would be different. But I could have put them through as a timber supplier. But my point is that you'll notice over here I have a cost code. And what that means is when I actually send that purchase order to Watts Carpentry, not only for the labour but for the material, they're going to have a cost code with it. So if I went down to, say, my labour framing down the bottom here, expanded, I've got labour, cut and build, ground floor frames on site, the amount that I pay, the units, the price per unit that I pay them, and I've got that carpenter there. Now I'm going to disable all the rest of the things here because I don't want to see these. Just keep it to Watts Carpentry. I've got build frames, so cut, build frames, so that's what we're going to do. And we'll just get rid of these. Now I'm going to create a purchase order for Watts Carpentry. And you can see that they must have other things to do. You've got labour, windows and so on, because previously I associated a cost code with those subcontractors. So if I went, you know what, let's just do wall framing, labour and timber package 1 and generate it, and I can go back and now you can see that they're going to supply this size timber and they're going to install whatever it is that I do, and I can change this and write things in, because sometimes when you're getting to the purchase order stage you go, oh, there are other things I need them to do, and that might be, I don't know, clean site after or whatever. You can add those things in and add a price in. Once I send this purchase order to the subcontractor and once I'm happy with it, it's what I expect to see on his invoice as it comes back in. And if it's different, the price is different on the bottom of the purchase order to what it is in the invoice, now I want to know why. Now it could be that I missed something, but that's a benefit. We can write those things down that we missed and then add them into our recipes for next time to make sure that when we're actually sending out purchase orders, they're covering everything. Because if I'm using the model that I've drawn to quote, it means that the amount of money I've allowed for that wall to be built has to be covered by the invoices plus my margin. And all the incidentals that we bundle up are all going to become a loss for our business. They're going to cut into our margin. So from here, we're going to send the purchase order out. We're going to save it. And there's several other things for Watts Carpentry, which you'll see that were there before. And I think it was windows, wall framing, interior fix out, and generate. Here are all Watts Carpentry's items that I'm going to pay this guy for the whole lot. Right? It's only a small job. You can see that I haven't put in some prices. So I would, at this stage, go back and put in some prices. But I do have this cost code next to all of them. That way, I have a budget associated with a number or a section of the job. The number is basically a way of quantifying stages of the project. And having cost codes or item codes in a job makes it very, very simple to do. Right, I'm going to save that report as well. I now have covered my carpentry. If I went back to the job, because there's a lot more in this job than just carpentry, go back and then I'm going to go to windows and doors. I've got my windows and I can go in here and you can see what type of window. What is a single hung 1 meter by 1.2 meter window. I would usually get a price on that. So I would enter a price for that and say, okay, it's going to be, let's say it's $450. I would also put this to a supplier, so I'd give it to my window company, and I would put in a cost code as well. I'm going to just type in window because I would have a cost code there for Windows 3300. So creating a set of cost codes is so important. Now there are also standards. I think I'm using the NAHB standards cost codes from America, and I just changed them to suit Australia. If you want a copy of the Australian versions, guys, and you're a PlusSpec user, reach out. We'll give you a copy that you can import into PlusSpec, so you've got cost codes set up ready to go. But I also have other things here that are associated with. So plumb and level the window, pack, screw and nail. Watts Carpentry. Well, I've already created that purchase order because I already created my purchase order for Watts Carpentry. So if I actually went back and looked at my purchase orders, you'll see that install windows, plumb, black and level is there. And how much I pay him to do that per window. Right? Right. I'm going to, let's have a look at other things to do. Install, so if you're in the States, you'll be using zip tape. It means you need to allow that for around the window. And I could type in the total lineal, which is 4.2 meters. Or I could have just linked it later, 4.2. Right, and at a price, what I pay, let's say I pay $5 a metre for zip tape. Right, and then I could go through and look at anything else that's a cut brick arches around the window. It's not a brick arch, so I'm just going to remove that there. You can see that I have all of my items here ready to go. Right? It means that I now have purchase orders for my window, and I did this all by drawing. All of this, I didn't actually go through, read a plan and say, oh, there's 1 window, 2 windows, 3 windows, 4 windows. It would have taken me too long. But what I did do is I drew a wall, and I can see, in that wall, I can see what's needed to be built, which means that I can, in my head, I can go, well, if I've associated a price with everything, if we go back here, it goes through all these things, and I've got a price associated with these items, or I click on them, I can see whether I've got prices associated with each item in the project, so framing. At this stage here, if I've got a 0 amount here, I haven't allowed money for it. Sundries, I haven't allowed a sundries, and sundries is usually that contingency. I try and stay away from it because it can win you jobs, it can lose your jobs, make you money, and it can lose a lot of money. So there you go, there's some things that I haven't got in there. But very, very quickly, I can see my whole job, the type of bricks I've got. Have I associated a price of those bricks? No, because I haven't rang up and got a price of the bricks. I'll associate a price of the bricks. I've made a phone call. I'm going to give them a quick call. And there's 48.5 bricks per square metre, and it's going to be $1 a brick. Right? I can associate that with a supplier, let's say Austral Bricks. Now it's going to generate a purchase order for Austral Bricks, and I'm going to have a heap of purchase orders, more than you probably expect, but it's so much easier to print all of these out and go through them and say, yeah, I agree with that, I agree with that, I agree with that. Hold on, just write something on it, send it off, and when you send it, it also should be under the condition that when they send the invoice back, it comes with the purchase order attached. Now, it's obviously going to be digital, but at least you can go, okay, purchase order was here, invoice is here. Where are the differences? Did I need to add more items? Are my cost codes working for me? And the way that you expand your business is by, you can actually pay someone else to do that. So for instance, purchase orders gone out, you as the business owner has checked them. Yes, send the purchase orders out. Now, invoices start coming in, and if you're a builder and you're actually looking after the whole job, I don't think it's necessary for you to check off the invoices that are associated with a purchase order because you've already created a purchase order. All you need to know is if the purchase order is less than the price of the invoice. And at that stage, whoever's signing off needs to have an explanation. And then we would say, I would usually say, I need you to create an order for the difference between the purchase order amount and the invoice amount. And let's say, for instance, it was you've got $10,000 on the purchase order. It comes in at $11,000. There needs to be somebody to justify why the $1,000 was spent. It could be an estimating error. It could be that the supplier has jacked up their prices and haven't said anything and just sent it across. But the worst thing can happen if you just sign it off, too busy, it doesn't matter, there goes $1,000. That's 10% you lost on top of your job. It's coming out of your margin. So purchase order linked with an invoice from a supplier enables you to see exactly where either you missed something or exactly where you're losing money. If you're using cost codes, it makes it easy to segment those items into and say, oh wow, I lost or I made money in these stages of the job. You can either refine your margin where you made more, or you can go, I can take some from that and put it to that because I've made a mistake. So it's a little bit of swings and roundabouts. I'm not sure if this is clear enough, but it's one simple wall. It's got every single thing that I've drawn in there. Obviously, if I did a full house, I would have a whole heap more. So let's have a look at, say, this one. With this particular house, I could do an estimate on this house. Now, I didn't draw this. This is done by Ian Ferroni, Dimension Designs. I only received it the other day. I'm going to quickly do a takeoff on his model. Think of this, guys. Instead of me tracing over plans using a designer that's actually using this software, enabled me to go through it and say, right, what's he got in here? He's got shower screens, a couple of other things, Brightex mirrors. It's just reading them. Now, if I've quoted these items before, it remembered. So even though I haven't seen this model before, it remembered I have bought these Brightex mirrors before, and they're $3,600. Pest control, slabs, How much concrete's in this job? Okay, so we've got 152 cubic meters of concrete, and we've got 900 meters of surface area. We've got to pour concrete, we've got framing, we've got all of these things that are just inside of a model that I can now associate purchase orders with, and I can look at it and go, well, what's missing on the job? I could actually look at this designer's job and go, where are we? As I said, not my plans, but we got structure. Okay, right. For a designer, the walls inside of PlusSpec automatically will create framing, but I'd want to look at this and go, can I build this? Am I going to need, something else to hold it up? Fortunately, Ian is a good designer, and Ian actually likes to line first story and ground floor up, which means that I can look at this from a builder's perspective, go and add in some steel beams if I wanted to. I'll say beam here, and it might need some beams and posts. I'm not going to get too caught up here, guys, but I'll choose a beam size, go submit, and we might need a beam through here, whatever it is. That beam is now added to my quote. I'm also going to need some posts that I'm going to go down here with. You can see there's a whole heap of other things that I do. But now I can look at a designer's model. I can look at a bill of quantities on that model, and it might be that Ian, when he sent me this plan, actually just wants me to give him an indication quote to make sure that this is feasible for the client's budget, which I would charge for in time, and he would forward that to the client. But what I'm doing is I'm getting an understanding of the job. I can quote a job like that and give him some really round high figures to make sure that they're within budget, and the client can say, yes, go ahead, or redesign. It's better than requoting. Anyway, back to purchase orders, guys. If this job was done, I could actually go and create my purchase orders here quite easily. Edit, see more. You can see I've got it. Remember that I've put in a cost code before, who's going to supply it, and so on. And I've also got my prices in there from somebody else's model. Right, concrete. I haven't put in a price of concrete. It fluctuates so much. At the moment, it's about $300 a cube. And I would obviously price around for that, and I would put that into there. And then essentially, I'm at $45,000 bang off it. There's no guessing. There's no roughly about this much. Or people who work on square meter areas of floor plans to give indicative quotes eventually are one day going to have to do it if that indicative quote goes back to the designer. Client says, yeah, let's build it. It's one time at one stage of the job they're going to have to figure out how much concrete is in that, and someone's going to actually order it. It doesn't make sense if the designer's designing it not to actually know at the start of the job and say, well, at the moment I've allowed for 152 cubic meters of concrete in the initial plan. If the plans come back and there's 200 cubes or 100 cubes, obviously it justifies why the price is changing. Alright, again guys, I'm going to run through it again one more time. Basically, if we draw something or if we're taking something off, it should be associated with the trades that put it together, the suppliers that supply the material, and any other thing that goes with that. It could be your labour or time. Each of those items should be broken down with a cost code associated with them and put into with a subcontractor associated with that cost code. You can then generate purchase orders that you send out to the subcontractors or to the suppliers that need to match the invoice that comes back in. That enables us to go, okay, did I over order? Did I under order? If there's things left on site, guys, you can now go and say, oh, okay, on that job I've allowed too many bricks. Go back and adjust the amount of bricks per square meter. The main thing is that once those invoices come in, if there's a discrepancy between the invoice and the purchase order, whether it be plus or minus, those things need to be noted down for next time you quote, so that way you can be more accurate when you quote. And if you do this and set it up right, you'll actually make more money on every job. If you're designing and building yourself, then essentially you actually would have a model that you can walk the client through, so you have a sales tool as well. Now this is Ian's job, as I said. I can see what it is that Ian wants to do, but if it was my job, I can show the client what it is I'm going to build for their money. Communication is the key. We all know what a crappy set of plans look like, and we all know how hard it is to build from a crappy set of plans, but when you're working from a 3D model that actually will produce plans, and we can dimension them, put them to council, we now have everything in one spot. Anyway, guys, I hope this information helps. If you've got any questions, ask them below. If you like the video, push like. If you dislike the video, push dislike. But tell us why, because we can improve too. Cheers.